Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of Classroom Matters with me, your host, Kristy Houle. Today, I am sitting down again with another one of our students, talking about the preparedness that they feel coming out of high school. But in today's episode, we're actually going to be talking with Jack Pifer, who will be a senior coming up this year. So we're sort of switching it up a little bit from young adults that have graduated and are on their way to either college or career. But today we're going to talk a little bit more about where kids are when they get to like their sort of last final hurrah in school, and they have 1 year to sort of make some really difficult decisions sometimes and get ready for what might be coming next. So Jack, welcome to the show. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
How you been doing this summer? What's been going on?
Lots of running and doing some side jobs like cutting grass and other things that I'm using to make money because I don't have an actual job, but I'm still trying to make money here and there.
So you will be a senior.
Yes.
Okay, so you're going into your senior year, and you're in a fairly decent-sized school district. I wouldn't say it's super small, but it's not. It's also not a big district, but it's a sort of an average-sized district. So you said you've been doing a lot of running. What are you talking about when you're saying you've been doing a lot of running this summer?
So I run for the cross-country and track teams for long distance, so every morning usually get up and, run for an hour or so, and me and my teammates, we're just building up a little bit of a base, and then come November, we can hopefully do well at state.
So how long, because we're going to talk a lot about athletes in school and sort of the different kinds of pressures that I think that student athletes face sometimes, but backing up a little bit, how long have you been involved in track and cross country in schools?
So I've been running since 6th grade, and I've ran every year, so it's been a long time, and I've enjoyed it quite a bit. So.
And you're good at it.
Yeah, I'm not too shabby.
And so talking about being prepared for next steps, I can only assume that that's something that you are going to be carrying out not only for your senior year, but possibly scholarship form and where you go once you're out of high school.
So, running outside of high school, I would like to do it if I can. So hopefully that's a possibility for me. I think it's a good way. So I've heard from a lot of people that in college, it's just similar to high school in some regard where, you'll find yourself a group of people off the bat, so it's not going to be too difficult to, fit in wherever I'm going to end up. So, and then it'll be a nice way to make connections. So I think planning on it, we'll see how that turns out, though.
Yeah, and that's a really good point. I really never thought of it that way, but going into college already belonging to a group, because I know that's what a lot of young adults, they have to figure out when they get there. If they weren't in a sport, where do I sort of fit in?
Yeah, exactly. And I'm not really into the whole fraternity thing.
Yeah.
I would much rather just do running.
Mm-hmm. So it sounds like you already have quite a few plans that you've thought about. So what are some of the other things that you think you really have to buckle down and get serious about? Because you're sort of at your last, this is it, right? And it'll go by super fast. Once you start school and track, you have about 9 months before you're technically going to have to sort of be out there on your own.
Yeah, so obviously I got to keep working on college applications. That's the main part. If I'm communicating with some of the coaches at colleges, then I'll keep doing that as well. I'm going to be doing a few visits, a few more, and other than that, I'm just going to sort of just keep on top of what I have going on at school.
Kind of see what happens. Do you have any top schools, particular schools that you really would love to get into?
There's a lot of schools I would like to go to. Some of them might not be as realistic. I'm sort of just trying to be financially smart about where I go. So I would love to go to Stanford, but I don't know about that one. But then there's other schools. Brown seems pretty cool. Virginia Tech, some schools in Georgia.
Mm-hmm.
There's quite a few that I've just been looking at because they all have what I would like to go into.
So you're looking at leaving? You're
Yeah,
not going to be one of those kids where you're like, oh, I'm just going to stick around and go to the local university. I'm going to like really travel and be on my own.
I don't really want to like stay too close to home because I just sort of want to like see something new. So I'd much rather just go out there and see what the world has to offer.
Yeah. And I think that's, that really lends itself to our conversation today, because a lot of the young adults that we've been talking to do plan on just sort of staying kind of close to home. So even though they're on their own going to college, they still sort of have that support of mom and dad, whether they're living at home or they're living down the street. And you're really going to be by yourself if you're, in Virginia or somewhere like that. So are you nervous about that, or are you kind of feeling pretty confident about it?
I wouldn't say I'm too nervous about it because I know a lot of people do it, so I don't think I'll have too much trouble. It'll definitely be different, and the thing about like going to your local university, like a lot of times that is very cost efficient and it's a good financial decision, but I don't know. I just think that there's just more to what I can do.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's awesome. I mean, I commend you for wanting to sort of really be on your own and be independent, because I think we're in the day and age now where so many young kids are living at home until they're like 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, because it's easier for them and they have that support. And I think, though, it hinders them in really getting out there and being an adult. So I think that that's really admirable that you want to sort of go off and see what else is out there and be your own person. So it sounds like you have like the sports under wraps, but let's talk a little bit about academics. So obviously if you go to a university, you are going to need to really be focused on your academics. So are you looking into any certain field that you're really interested in?
So computer science and fields like related to that, I'm pretty interested in. So computer science or software development or computer engineering. I just sort of really like to make things, so being able to make something of my own would be super cool, like, after, even during college, that entices me.
Mm-hmm. Would you say that in getting yourself prepared for this and having 1 year left, so I know that a lot of the preparation for kids come in their senior year from the school district, but you've been in public education, whether it was a private school or a public school, your whole life, because I think you went to a private school prior to the high school setting, correct? Mm-hmm. So private school up until high school. And then now you're in the high school setting. How prepared do you think public education has made you to really go out there and do your own thing?
Well, at least for my school, I feel like it's made me pretty prepared, and I've talked to other people that have graduated as well. And they seem to be doing well.
Like from the same district?
Yeah.
Okay.
A lot of them from the same district say that their college, like they were very well prepared for college. And obviously there's some colleges that are like more difficult than others. But from a general standpoint, I haven't talked to anyone that has felt like they haven't been at all prepared for college. So, do
you think that a large majority of that has come from the school itself, or a combination of the fact that you come from a supportive family with two working parents that are invested in your education and they've sort of supported you throughout this? Or do you think that a student your same age that maybe didn't have the same support in their life outside of school and just went to the school and sort of were doing it on their own would feel the same way, that they were as prepared?
There's a lot of factors that like go into that. So as you mentioned, like my parents have been very supportive of me, and they're always like pushing me to do something like more challenging, trying to take honors classes and all kinds of that stuff. And I think that's really important, just as well as like the student's own drive and want to learn. If you're gonna go to school and not like you're just trying to get through it and not really challenging yourself or exploring anything new, just doing what you have to, I don't think you're gonna feel nearly as prepared. But that also probably is influenced by how supportive your parents are. If they don't really push you from a young age, then it's like probably a less likelihood of success in high school and
Yeah.
and beyond. So
Well, and both of your parents are business owners. They both own their own businesses. And so you being able to watch that as you've grown up, them being responsible and going from a position where, okay, I'm working here, now I own the business, to your mom owning her own business, right, from the get-go. And so you've sort of had that role model to watch and see that level of success. So I think you're right. I think it is a good balance based on what's internally motivating the student and what the outside influences are as well. So I'm just always curious as to how much of a role that public education actually plays in kids being prepared.
yeah, I think that the education is there and good, but you have to put in effort on your side.
They're not just going to come looking for you and step you through. So you had to seek this out, all of the help and assistance. I mean, I know that they probably have programs, am I correct in that? Like they'll come and talk to your classes and things like that?
What do you mean by that?
Like does a counselor come and have
So-
conversations with you as a group about college and career and things like that?
So we have a couple things sort of like that, and also there's points in the year where, like, throughout the year, every single student, like, meets with their counselor at least one time, and they just talk about, how their high school is going. And so, yeah, like, that opportunity is there. Like, they try to help you out a little bit, but you gotta, you have to, like, know what you are trying to do.
Yeah, you have to kind of take ownership and know and seek out.
Yeah, you got to
that
take
help.
initiative.
Yeah. So it sounds like you've had, up to this point, a lot of really successful influences in the school, and you've had, you're doing a lot of great things. But what would you say some of the challenges have been for you and possibly other students in trying to get prepared for really becoming an adult?
So I think there's like a lot of challenges, but at the same time, there's nothing that isn't really manageable. It's all about just how you use what you're given, like your time and what you choose to do in your extracurriculars and stuff like that. So there's like me doing cross country as well as taking difficult classes is sort of a bit of a challenge because I have less time to do things. And I also do other extracurriculars outside of school, like robotics, and I need to manage my time a lot when I'm involved in all those kinds of things. So I think that's one of the major challenges because most kids that I know do something outside of school or inside of school that consumes their time.
Do you think that there's too much pressure put on student athletes?
Not really. I guess it depends on who you ask, but I haven't felt like there's too much pressure. And most of the coaches and teachers that I've had, they are pretty good about if you have a problem or if you have to miss practice because you have homework or if you have some other thing to do for another class. The teachers and the coaches are not going to be difficult with you for that. So it's definitely like there's a challenge there, but it's all about communication with everyone who you're interacting with.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that student athletes are given special treatment sometimes?
Sometimes, yes, but majority of the time, it's not that big of a deal, I don't think.
So you're not under the impression that the star athletes in the school are sort of held at a little bit of a higher esteem than just an average student?
I think that if you are the star athlete, then you're definitely looked at as a little bit more important, I would say. Mm-hmm. But on average, I don't think that's really like super. It's not that big of a deal. Mm-hmm. Like there's certainly things that them like they wouldn't treat a normal student how they would, their best football player or something like that. But it's
and
not
I think that's pretty typical.
Yeah.
District to district, because if you were the star runner of the school and I wasn't involved in anything, and we had the same reason for not being at school or whatever, I think that I would maybe not receive as much, oh, it's okay, don't worry about it, I'll help you get through this, as much as maybe you might, if that makes sense.
Yeah, maybe
Maybe
not.
because of your position in the school.
Yeah, I think that's entirely possible.
Yeah. So we're talking a little bit about challenges and getting you prepared and some of the things that you face during the day. And we've sort of been, talking a little bit about school safety. And I know in the last 5 to 10 years, students are now doing a lot of intruder drills and, the fight, run, or hide, and all of these things that are unfortunately preparing them in case there were a tragic event. So do you ever feel unsafe at school when we're talking about school safety?
I have never really felt unsafe at school. There's never really been anything that has happened that's that bad at our school. There might be reason to feel unsafe at certain times, but I've been sort of like indifferent in most of those scenarios. Like, if we're doing drills or something like that, I don't have an opinion really either way. It's like, okay, I guess we're doing it. Mm-hmm. I don't really have much of a say in it. So,
do you think that we do too much of that, or do you think it's necessary?
I'm not really sure because nothing has really happened to me. So, like, if something did, my opinion could change.
Right.
But it could be useful. I don't think it hurts. So, I don't think it's that bad of a thing.
Yeah, you're prepared.
Exactly.
You would be ready if something did happen. So homework, repetitive lessons, a lot of the fluff that goes on during the day. Do you really think that a lot of that is necessary to get a good education at the level at which we sometimes do that as teachers?
I think that repetitive lessons are good in some scenarios, and it always depends on the kid because some people excel at different things than other people. So a lesson that might be hard for me could be easier for someone else to understand. So it's not really it's not really a one-size-fits-all. So doing repetitive lessons, I think is a helpful thing as long as the curriculum that needs to be taught is like thoroughly explained. So in higher level classes, there tends to be a little less repetitiveness because there's so much stuff that you have to get through, and a lot of that, if you don't get something, you can ask it in class, and the teacher will not complain about having to restate it again. Like, they will be happy to. But a lot of times, if you're really struggling with that, then you can always go after school and get it further explained.
What about homework? Too much? Not enough? Just right?
Depends on the class. I don't know how I feel about homework all the time because sometimes I feel like it's way too much and sometimes it's completely manageable. Mm-hmm. For example, my freshman year, I had a teacher that was notorious for giving lots of homework and having a really hard class, and it would be like a 70-question assignment with 5 steps to each question, and it became so repetitive because I know for a fact that I would have the same level of confidence in my answer on the worksheet, on the test, or something related to that if I had only done 30 because it was almost the exact same thing every time. And I think that it might help with memorization maybe a little bit, but I don't think it's completely necessary because after so long it doesn't really help.
Yeah, you're just kind of beating a dead horse. Like, we already get it. Yeah, I could have told you this in 3 sentences instead of 3 pages type thing. Mm-hmm. Do you think sometimes teachers just feel compelled, that's their job to give out homework, and if they're not giving out enough homework, that they're going to be seen as the teacher that's not doing their job?
Some teachers, and it also depends on the class, mostly give out useful assignments that will actually help you with what your test is going to be on, or what you're learning in the class. And a lot of times teachers might give out more busy work just for grades' sake, and that can be good and bad. Certainly busy work has saved my grade a couple of times. But
when you had to do some crossword puzzles and you were able to get credit.
Exactly.
Well, there you go.
It can be good and bad.
Yeah.
But then when you're not, struggling in the class, when you don't need that, it just becomes more of a chore that isn't necessary.
Or if you don't have the time.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
I mean,
so we're almost kind of diving right into the next thing I wanted to ask you about, which are effective teachers versus ineffective teachers. And I mean, I think that just happens. There's no public school or private school in my mind, or I've been doing this for over 20 years in education, and I've never visited a school or been to a school or worked in a school that had 100% effective teachers. So we know that they're out there. And so looking back on your public school career up to this point, if you had to think back to one or two of the best, most effective teachers that you learned the most from, versus some of the teachers that maybe at some points you're even like, maybe they really shouldn't even be in the classroom right now because I'm learning nothing from them. What are some characteristics that you would give to both categories of teachers? And we'll just start with effective teachers. What are some of the things that some of your teachers have done really, really well?
So if we're comparing, contrasting, then I would say that...
Yeah, let's compare and contrast.
So, exactly.
Awesome.
So an effective teacher, enthusiastic about what they're going to teach, doesn't seem like they're sort of like bored in the class, engages the students is definitely one of the things that is like up there. If you can get your students' attention, that is perfect for having them learn. And ineffective teachers, they will stand up there and lecture the entire hour or, not engage students and just, teach what they have to teach and then be done. I think that's just, for me, that doesn't work. I would like to, actually exercise my brain sometimes in class.
Yeah.
So.
Do you think you're lacking the time in class? Because I've had a couple of other students tell me this, and you sort of just hit on it when you said that you like to exercise your brain sometimes. Do you think that teachers are being made to teach so much stuff, so much information in a certain amount of time that it just doesn't allow always for a really good dialogue or classroom conversations, or for you to even possibly as a student question something or ask questions in a more in-depth way than just, okay, here's the information, here's what I need to give you so that you can pass the test and learn this?
I actually think that's a really good question because...
Oh, thank you. I do that for a living.
That is a really good question because I know that I had a teacher last year that we had like good class discussions all the time, and it was because I think we had a lot of stuff to learn, but there was just enough so that we could have a very good class discussion. We could talk for a good chunk of time, and I would be able to remember those conversations when my abilities are being assessed. So on a test, it would be much easier to remember a conversation in class where we were talking about, I could follow the train of thought and conversation. I can remember that much easier than writing something down on a piece of paper. And that is something that my teacher was like really, really good at.
So really
year.
less is more sometimes.
Yeah, I think you just need to be able to have a conversation in classes.
What do you think about using your cell phone in school? I know that's a big controversy, and we were talking to one student, and they were telling us that it was so bad that the teachers had actually put up mirrors. It was a completely different school district, not even in the same state that you're in, but the teacher put up mirrors in the back of the room so that if a student had their cell phone out, they could actually see what they were looking at. So that was pretty extreme.
That's funny.
But I know there's a big controversy about students using cell phones, and there's a lot of people that are on the side of just let them use them because it's sort of part of who kids are now. Like their cell phone is sort of like attached to them. They're used to it. It's something that could be useful for them. And then other teachers are like, no, we don't even want to see them. They're just a distraction. So kind of where do you fall as being a student who I'm assuming you have a cell phone?
Yeah.
Okay. What do you think? What do you think that the benefits are?
This is a tough one because
another good question.
Yeah. It can definitely be a distraction, and a lot of the time I will say it is a distraction.
Did you hear that, teachers that are listening? It is a distraction.
The majority of the time I think it's a distraction, and I think that just the student themselves just has to they should know their ability. If they're on their cell phone, while it is like the teacher's job to engage the students and teach, if they're going to be on their on their phone, you can look at it one of two ways. It's their fault because they aren't trying to pay attention. They, obviously they don't want to learn the material of the class, so they can do whatever they want and not do well. Or you can look at it from the perspective where it's like, the teacher wants every single one of her students to, be engaged in the class. And I think that cell phones in the class are really, it's not necessary. Like, if I had to take my cell phone and, like, put it somewhere at the beginning of each class, I would not be a big fan of that. Mm-hmm. I'd rather have it on me, but I'm not really one to use it.
Mm-hmm. Well, because technically in about 2 years, you will be able to make that decision for yourself, because most university professors are not going to have a cell phone rule, and people at your job aren't going to have a cell phone rule usually. You just use your common sense when you're in those situations.
So the way I look at it is if you're using your phone in class, it's like
that
that's
responsibility
on you.
falls on you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I don't think the teacher should have to be responsible. Like, while they should teach and engage their students, they shouldn't also have to be constantly, telling their kids to be engaged. Like, they just should. That's why they're there. So.
Right. Well, and the difference with, and do you like how we got in this conversation? We weren't even supposed to talk about that, but you see how it just popped up. But now I'm intrigued because when you just made the point that, it's really on the student. Like, if you choose to be on your cell phone, then you're not going to get the information, right? And that's why a lot of universities, professors, and your job, it's on you, it's not on them. But and I think when this argument gets brought up, when you're looking at public school, it is on the teacher, because they're being judged based off of how well their students do or don't do, as opposed to a college professor is not really being assessed or judged by the district or the principal or the state on how well those kids are doing. They either pass the course or they don't. So I think that you bring up a good point about it. Just really, as you get older, it really truly is on the individual themselves.
Yeah, I see what you mean by, it is more on the teacher in high school, because, yes, their classes are,
they're being held
assessed,
accountable for whether their kids learn or not.
Yeah, you can, like, see the grades, and sometimes we have to take, some tests or whatever.
Testing.
Yeah, exactly. It's sort of difficult because clearly you want, like, the teachers want, no matter how good of a teacher they are, like, if they can't control, like, the kids in their class, it's sort of on them, but it's sort of, like, not at the same time, because you can be an excellent teacher, but it's really, like, up to, like, the mindset of the kids that are in your class.
Yeah, so for all our teachers that are listening, it's not your fault, teachers. You're doing the best that you can with the cell phone issues that I know that you're facing every day with these kids. And it's getting younger and younger. I mean, we're talking elementary school kids now have cell phones when they go to school, when that was just absolutely unheard of 5 to 10 years ago. And now,
even when
third
I was
graders.
in middle school, like, I didn't have a cell phone. I never used it. I kept it in my locker.
Yeah.
Even when I did. So.
Right. Well, and because at that age, students are really not at the developmental stage yet where they can have that self-control and make those common sense decisions.
I do agree with that.
It's like, taking a kid and going, you can either listen to the teacher or watch cartoons and eat a bowl of ice cream. What are you going to choose? They're always going to choose the cartoons and the ice cream because, they're 10. So wrapping this up, if you could change one thing about your public school experience going into next year, because you have a year left. So if there's one thing you could change to say, if this started happening, it would make my last year of school so much better and make me so much more prepared, what would that be?
I don't think there's, like, too much that I would change, because I felt pretty comfortable all my years of high school so far. Most of the problems that I've really ran into are something to do with, like, me not managing my time or something like that.
Let me ask you this then. What do you want for yourself? What are some goals maybe that you've set for yourself or that you're thinking of now, like going into this last year of my public school education before I'm on my own? What are some things you'd really like to accomplish, whether that's being more organized or learning how to do something more efficiently so that you're more prepared?
Those two are, like, big goals, because I can be very efficient and get my work done if I want to, but sometimes it's just very hard. So I'm gonna try and sort of streamline most of my. I want to be able to, like, have free time where, like, I actually don't have any stress. So, like, rather than going home and sitting around for a little while after practice, and just being like, okay, I'll start my homework in a little bit. Rather than having that in the back of my mind, I would rather be able to, like, get it done, and then, like, after all my homework's done, I'm like, okay, now I actually, like, can do whatever I want.
That would be nice as an adult.
That would be ideal.
Where's my free time?
No, I don't know if that's going to happen.
I know, right? It doesn't. You'll have a very small window of time before you start a job or don't have classes or don't have a family to really have that free time. But, I mean, it's all worth it, everything that you do. And I am so thrilled that you were able to come on, and I'm wishing you the best of luck in your senior year. And you'll need to come back maybe after your first couple years of school. Tell us where you've went, do another episode with us, and kind of fill in the gaps because I'm sure my listeners are going to be like, wow, I wonder how that kid ends up doing or where he ends up going to school. So you have to come back and visit us over the next couple years and sit down and chat with us about where you've been.
All right. Sounds good.
Thank you, Jack.
Thanks so much.
And that wraps it up for this episode of Classroom Matters. Don't forget to check us out on the Educate.Today website.